The Massachusetts Department of Transportation may choose to retain and distribute the video, still images, audio, and/or chat transcript. Oops, sorry, could you just go back real quick? By continuing attendance with this public meeting, you are consenting to participate in a recorded event. If you do not feel comfortable being recorded, please turn off your camera, keep your microphone muted, and refrain from chatting in the transcript box. Else, you may choose to excuse yourself from the meeting. If you prefer to excuse yourself, you can find the materials at www.mass.gov/CIP. Please note that you are automatically muted upon entering the meeting. The meeting will be open to questions and answers at the end of the formal presentation. Next slide, please. Just a few Zoom controls here. The microphone button controls the microphone and speakers in your computer. The camera button turns your camera on and off. The chat box is to ask a question and share comments via private chat to the host. Please note all chat comments will be part of the official record. Raise your hand to request to be unmuted for verbal comments. That's the hand button. The little globe icon there is to select interpretation language. The closed caption button is to view closed captions automatically generated by Zoom. To adjust the caption size, click the upward arrow next to the start video, stop video, and then click video setting and accessibility. Move the slider to adjust the caption size. If you cannot access the internet or have technical problems, please call into the meeting at 1-888-788-0099, meeting ID 857-9613-5985, passcode 730172. When sharing questions and comments, please state your name first. Share only one comment or question at a time, limited to 2 minutes to allow others to participate. Use the raise hand button to request to be unmuted for verbal comments. Submit written comments or questions to the host using the chat panel. And please press *9 to ask a question via phone. When it is your turn, the moderator will call out the last 4 digits of your phone number and unmute your audio. All right, now, before we get started with this meeting, we could not do this CIP here at MassDOT without the help of our MPO and TPO partners. First, I would like to ask Sujatha Krishnan from the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission to please say a few words.
Thank you, Patrick. I would like to welcome you all to the FY22 Capital Investment Plan public meeting tonight. I want to thank MassDOT to hold a meeting that focuses specifically on our region in Central Massachusetts. I'm very interested to learn about the projects in our region, and I'm especially interested to learn about how the bond bill that the governor just signed into law a few months ago interacts with the capital investment plan today. So thank you all and welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Sujatha. Next, I'm going to ask Brad Harris to unmute himself from the Montachusett Regional Planning Commission.
Hi, thank you, Patrick. I'd like to echo the comments that Sujatha made and welcome you to the Montachusett Regional Planning Commission and the CIP meeting. I want to stress and ask that if anyone is interested and wants to be part of this transportation planning process in the Montachusett region, to reach out to us here at the Montachusett Regional Planning Commission and become involved in our various public meetings and public events that we have. If they're interested, I ask that they go to our website at mrpc.org, take a look at some of the stuff that's up there, and feel free to send us an email and get in touch with us, and we can get you involved in the planning process, either through our Joint Transportation Committee meeting that meets once a month, or the regular Planning Commission that also meets on the first Thursday of every month. So if you're interested in the stuff you hear tonight and you want to become more involved, again, please reach out to us and we'll get back to you and we'll get something started. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. So next, to bring us through the rest of the presentation, I'd like to welcome Michelle Ho from our Office of Transportation Planning.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me all right, and welcome tonight to this discussion of our 2022 capital investment plan. I do want to thank Sujatha and Brad for participating tonight. As they said, we really cannot do this capital plan without the partnership that we have with our MPO partners and our TPO partners. And as I walk through this presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about how important that relationship is and how what they do aligns with what we do on the overall capital investment plan for MassDOT and the MBTA. So tonight I'm just going to talk about what's in the plan, the approach, and the focus. I will touch on a little bit about what we're including from the bond bill that was recently signed by the governor in January, which is part of some of the new initiatives that we're introducing for this year's capital plan. I'm going to talk a little bit about how the CIP and the STIP align, the STIP being the transportation planning document that both Central Mass and Montachusett are heavily involved in developing. And we'll talk about how to use and explore the CIP in the interactive format that we've developed. I'm going to give you a highlight of the rest of the public meetings that have been scheduled for participation in the CIP, and then we're going to ask for your feedback tonight. So just a brief overview of what is a capital plan for MassDOT and the MBTA and how is it built. So it's our annually produced budget and policy document, and it really programs all of the state and federal funds that we receive at the Commonwealth to pay for long-term improvements to the transportation system. It's probably the one plan that we produce on an annual basis that includes all of the MassDOT assets and all of the MBTA capital assets. So incorporated in the plan is all of our investments that supports our roadway, our bridges, our bicycle and pedestrian facilities, all the transit vehicles, all the commuter rail investments, the stations that the MBTA invests in, investments that we make at the public use airports through our aeronautics division, and those are the airports that are not controlled and are managed by Massport, and that also includes our investments in the Registry of Motor Vehicles. When we launched the 2017 capital investment plan, we established a new framework for building the capital plan. It was focused on three main priorities, and they're arrayed in the graphic on the right. So reliability is in the green, modernization in the blue, and expansion in the gray. Those are the three key priorities. And since the 2017-2021 capital plan, we've really focused on investments that improve the reliability and modernize our existing transportation assets. And when we talk about reliability, we're talking about really maintaining and improving the condition of the system. So when we invest in a bridge condition to replace it, that would be considered a reliability type investment. On a modernization standpoint, we're taking that investment to the next level. We're making it safer. We're making it more accessible to accommodate growth. So we have the red and orange line transformation on the MBTA side. Also, some of our investments on the commuter rail transformation program for the MBTA. Our complete streets program falls under the modernization category. And finally, expansion really is the category where it expands the existing capacity of its investments that expand the existing capacity of the system, or also provide new diverse transportation options for communities across the Commonwealth. So when we invest in our bicycle and pedestrian program through our multi-use trails or our shared use paths, that's the type of investment that's a new type of transportation mode that we're investing in or providing, and that would be considered an expansion investment, along with the investments we're making in the Green Line Extension Project and the South Coast Rail program. In line with last year's capital plan, we decided this year to continue with what we're calling a maintenance of effort approach for the 2022 CIP. And that is somewhat related to the fact that there is still uncertainty as to what we're going to get out of Washington from our federal surface transportation reauthorization legislation that we will need. The FAST Act was extended through next September, but again, we've made assumptions for what that federal transportation formula funds will look like for the Commonwealth, but there's no guarantee. Also, as everyone knows, there's a lot of talk in Washington for the federal infrastructure funds that might be available for Massachusetts. And again, that has not been fully baked, and we don't really know what we will expect to receive, and we can be hopeful. But at this point in time, until we have a clearer picture, we're continuing with investing with what we already had planned to commence in 2022, what we already have underway. We're continuing our support for our major ongoing capital programs and our major capital projects that are already under construction. So we are supporting completion of the Green Line extension and phase 1 of the South Coast Rail program. We're including some targeted investments that really new investments that are going to advance our goals and priority. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. And the emphasis really is trying to build a strong foundation that sets us up for future funding opportunities when those become clear to Massachusetts. And it is our intent that we would embark on putting together a revamped 5-year capital plan once we have a clearer picture of the financial landscape. And that, I think now that the COVID protocols are being relaxed and we see probably driving coming back to a different norm than it has been over the last year, and perhaps transit ridership coming back to approaching pre-pandemic levels, we'll have a much clearer sense of where we are and what we need to be doing from a capital investment standpoint. We set out with this capital plan to try to articulate what are our goals for building the capital plan. So, you know, one of our key goals is to build a more and deliver a more strategic, what we're calling a performance-based capital plan. Since we first launched our capital plan under this new framework with the 2017 plan, we've done an awful lot of planning work at MassDOT, at the MBTA. The plans that we've developed, whether it be the statewide rail plan or the statewide freight plan or the statewide bicycle and pedestrian plans, and all of the asset management plans that have been developed by both MassDOT, the MBTA, and the regional transit authorities, we're using those planning efforts to inform and to drive how we build our capital plan. So we're looking at what are we trying to achieve, and with the investment dollars that we have, what are those outcomes that we want to have result from the monies that we have available. We want to build a capital program that really does reflect our multimodal strategy and connect the investments across the road. So when we repave a road, for example, it may not be just a paving job. It may be a paving job that also includes the introduction of a bicycle lane or new sidewalks. Same with the bicycle and pedestrian facilities. How do they connect with our transit facilities, et cetera? So it's really taking a look at this from a different standpoint and saying how it's not just in its own silo, a road project or a bridge project or a paving job or a bicycle investment. It's how is it a multimodal type of investment, and what are we doing from that standpoint in the capital plan? And then finally, we're working on communicating what investments are included in the capital plan and how those investments benefit all parts of the Commonwealth. So we'll want to hear from you as to whether we're doing a better job when you see the capital plan online, whether we're getting that message across. I wanted to talk a little bit about the MBTA. We are in Central Mass. The MBTA has a strong presence with the commuter rail. And also we have our transit investments through our regional transit authority network, but the MBTA also is continuing on projects that are underway from the maintenance of efforts standpoint for their capital plan for this year, and they're continuing to prioritize and invest in their steady state asset replacement and modernization. So they're doing a number of upgrades, and they've included in this capital plan the procurement of new electric hybrid buses for the Silver Line. They're overhauling the locomotives on the commuter rail. They're funding an ongoing program to replace the vans and sedans that are used by the ride service. They have, as one of their reliability programs that they invest in, is investments in their bridge and tunnel upgrades. So they're, for example, funding the replacement of the Gloucester drawbridge, which has caused problems on the Blue Line. And then they're continuing with their installation of the automatic train control from a safety standpoint on the north side of the commuter rail. And they're also completing the Braintree and Quincy Adams garage rehabilitation projects. as well as continuing their steady state asset replacement. They're continuing to invest in and support what I mentioned before, a number of in-flight capital programs. So they're continuing the Green Line extension, and they're working towards beginning revenue service on the Green Line by the end of calendar year 2021. So that's a huge milestone to be achieved. They're also continuing with construction of the South Coast Rail Phase 1, which will provide service to New Bedford and Fall River. And they're procuring additional commuter rail coaches to support that service. They're continuing to invest in transforming the Red Line and the Orange Line by investing in new vehicles, as many folks know, yards, and their maintenance facilities and signals work to support the introduction of the new cars on the track. And they're continuing with their implementation of their fare transformation to move to a more automatic fare collection system throughout the network. They're also making targeted investments in the next round of what they call transformation programs that will really help establish a strong foundation for the MBTA to be able to realize any future funding opportunities that are made available to the MBTA. So, and one of the things they're doing is they're finalizing the design and starting the construction of the Quincy bus facility to help support the ability to have battery electric buses be maintained at that facility. They're also investing in additional bus priority infrastructure. They're continuing their investments to support rail transformation and where that service will go in the future. They're completing the Leechmere Viaduct, and they're also working on the Green Line transformation with improvements to the Green Line track signals and stations. You've probably heard in the news of late about the consolidation of some of the stations on the B line of the Green Line. I think I have that right. So as Sujatha Krishnan mentioned, the governor did sign bond bill in January of this year. It was $16.2 billion in for the transportation bond bill authorizations. And the bond bill did include a number of new programs and funding that really were intended to address the asset conditions and congestion at the local level, as well as enhance pedestrian access to transit and improve the condition of the MassDOT highway bridges. So I wanted to spend a little time and talk about 3 new programs that we're including in the 2022 CIP that were authorized in the bond bill. We're including the funding for those programs. These are in addition to these 3 new programs, and are in addition to the programs that we already have well established in our capital plan to support our partnership with our municipalities across the Commonwealth. So we have existing capital programs that support our investments in our municipalities through our Chapter 90 program, through our Complete Streets program, and through our small bridge, municipal small bridge program. So those 3 programs are included in the capital plan. I don't want anybody to think that they're not. That question came up last night in a meeting. They are in there, and they are funded. Those were all reauthorized in the bond bill. But we're introducing this year a new program in response to what we've heard from the municipalities about the Chapter 90 funds, and in some respects not being the funding that some of the municipalities get to support some of the major paving projects that they have in their communities. So there's a new municipal pavement program that's being introduced. It was authorized at $100 million, and we're funding it at $15 million in 2022. And that's going to focus on improvement and repairs to municipally owned state numbered routes. It's a significant investment to help improve the road condition of those roadways across the Commonwealth. We're continuing with the program that was launched in 2020 in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and that was our Shared Streets and Spaces program. It was highly successful. I think we issued around $26.5 million in grants. They usually range from $5,000 to $500,000 to enable municipalities to meet their needs for more and safer outdoor recreation, commerce, and community activities. So a lot of communities created parklets and created areas for outdoor dining. They also added bus stops or expanded improvements to plazas. It's, you know, they submitted interesting and creative proposals for the grant funds, and we are happy to have launched that program. We are continuing with this program. It was actually authorized in the bond bill, has own authorization now, so we're funding it at $4 million for 2020 to continue it. And then another program that we have decided to launch for 2022 is the local bottleneck reduction program. That was authorized really and this was developed in response to the congestion in the Commonwealth report that was submitted to the governor in 2019 that had identified a number of areas and opportunities and made recommendations for how we could decrease congestion throughout the Commonwealth. And this program will provide new funding for cities and towns that would want to address localized and operationally influenced bottlenecks that currently negatively impact traffic flow. And you might think about restriping or a road or lane or shoulder width adjustments. Those would be the type of investments we will be looking to support at the municipal and local level. The bond bill also authorized a new funding source for MassDOT highway bridges, and these are called grant anticipation notes. So 1.25 billion was authorized in the bond bill. These are federally eligible funds that will be used by the Highway Division, and they're going to be used as part of the Highway Division's bridge program to improve the condition of the national highway system bridges across the Commonwealth. So we're developing with the Highway Division a list of eligible projects to be funded with the GANs. All of those projects must be eligible to be reimbursed with our federal highway funds. So they will be programmed into the state transportation program when we have an approved 2022-2026 STIP by federal highway. And so we anticipate after October, well, we submit the STIP and hopefully we'll get it approved at the beginning of the federal fiscal year, which is October 1st. But after we get the STIP approved, we can start amending in working with, say, Central Mass or Montachusett to amend in the projects that we've identified that would be funded in the first round of the grant anticipation notes. Currently, we have about $500 million program to support the highway bridge program that will be spent on improving the conditions of the bridge network, but that includes about $15 million in this new GANs funding. So it's a very similar program to what you heard of for the accelerated bridge program, but it's focused not on the mega bridges that were done under the accelerated bridge program, but more on the smaller bridges throughout the Commonwealth or a bundle of bridges. So as both Sujatha and Brad mentioned, we develop, there's a planning process that's involved with the MPOs and TPOs across the Commonwealth to build the State Transportation Improvement Program, which is a federally required plan. It's a 5-year plan. We currently have it out for public comment also. And it's the plan where we program all of the federal highway funds that we receive and the Federal Transit Administration grant awards that we receive. The federal highway funds are for the Highway Division in planning, and the FTA for MassDOT, for MBTA and the regional transit authorities. All of those federally programmed funds are incorporated into the STIP. So it really funds the roadway and bridge projects and all the transit projects. It is subject to federal approval, unlike the CIP, which is only subject to the MassDOT and FMCB board approvals. And it covers the federal fiscal year, which begins October 1 of every year and ends September 30th of every year. So it's off a quarter from the cycle that we have for the Commonwealth's capital plan. So one of the other big differences between the STIP and the CIP is it's an obligation-based document where the CIP really reflects the spending of those projects that have been programmed in the STIP. The CIP reflects how those funds spent out over time. So they're not quite the same when you look at what you see in the STIP document for that very reason. But it's a large subset. The STIP is a large subset. All the federal highway funds and the federal transit funds are a large subset of the overall CIP funds that we program on an annual basis. And as I said, it's developed concurrently with the CIP, the CIP. And I wanted to just walk through the little nested circle diagram down at the bottom of this slide. So if you look down at the bottom circle, that's the STIP and the TIPs, the TIPs. So Central Mass developed its TIP, endorsed its TIP, as did Montachusett's. The 10 MPOs and the 3 TPOs in Massachusetts. When we aggregate those TIPs together, they are then the STIP for Massachusetts, the State Transportation Improvement Program. In the circle in the middle, we do receive other federal funds. We receive federal aviation grants that are used by our aeronautics division, and we receive other grants from the Federal Railroad Administration. The MBTA has a FRA grant that they're using for Worcester Union Station work. And we also have another grant that the MBTA is using for work on the Tower 1 interlocking project at South Station to eliminate a lot of the delays that have happened there. And then overall, the larger circle really reflects all of the funding and the sources and uses of transportation funding available to Massachusetts, and includes all the funding for the MBTA, the Highway Division, the Rail and Transit Division, our Aeronautics Division, and our Registry of Motor Vehicles. So if you think about it and you look at the STIP and the TIP, I would say that the Federal Highway and Federal Transit funds comprise 40% of our overall funding for the CIP. At least 40%. I wanted to talk a little bit about the role that the MPOs and the TPOs play in the transportation development of the capital plans for transportation. They play a very important role. There are great partners with us. And as Brad said, there's ways to get involved, and we encourage the public to get involved. So they're really the transportation policy and decision-making bodies. For each of the MPOs or TPOs are composed mostly of local or state officials, and they really do play the critical role in developing the overall STIP. So they annually review and select eligible projects for funding with their allocations of the federal funds that the Commonwealth receives. So we receive a slug of federal formula funds for highway and for the MBTA and for the rail and transit for the RTAs. And those get programmed and prioritized by those entities themselves. So everyone gets an allocation, and collectively the TIPs make the decision on the projects that get prioritized for funding and are included in the individual TIPs. So as every spring between April and May, all of the TIPs, all of the MPOs and TPOs release their draft TIPs for public comment, and the MPOs and TPOs have been meeting to endorse their draft TIPs as we speak. They have been out for public review. And I do want to point out that they have robust websites. We actually put on the mass.gov CIP website this year information about, it's found under the Engaging Local and Regional Officials tab under our CIP website. We put in information on the MPO and the links to the MPO and TPO websites and their meeting schedules. We felt it was important to inform the public of the role that the MPO and TPOs play in prioritizing projects for funding that end up in the CIP, because I think that that's an important point. All of the projects that get programmed in the STIP are also incorporated into the CIP, because all of the federal funds are incorporated. So this slide just goes through how we array our funding by priority and by division. So I'm going to just focus everyone's attention to the left donut, the left side, the down, I guess the left-hand corner and in the bottom, the donut. As you can see, the green, which reflects reliability, is 45% of all of our investments for 2022. And the blue, which is modernization, is 27%. So since the 2017 plan, we focused about 3/4 of our investments on improving the reliability and modernizing our existing transportation network, while at the same time continuing to invest in projects that expand the capacity like Green Line extension and provide other diverse transportation options like our bicycle and pedestrian network. And the other two slugs are the Chapter 90 program, which is $200 million at 5%, and just planning and enterprise services funds. So our state planning and research funds that we allocate to our MPO and TPO partners are included in that other 5%. The top graph just illustrates how that funding is split by priority and by division. And as you can see, the highway division and the MBTA, because they have a large amount of federal funding available, have the greatest share of the spending for this year's capital plan in every priority. And that's usually the case. They are the largest divisions. They have the most projects. Overall, we have a $4 billion capital plan for 2022, and that compares favorably to the plan we had last year. So we're up about 370 million. And as you can see, the differences are really across all of the reliability, modernization, and expansion categories. So we wanted to give everybody a flavor, and this is just a snapshot. It's not the entire list of just some of the projects that are in the Central Mass and Montachusett region. We just thought we would pull out a few projects that are in the capital plan for this year. And the full list of projects is in the CIP document that is online. It's in Appendix A, which is called Investment Details. And it has all of the investments programmed for 2022 by division, or in the case of the rail group by rail line. In the case of the transit, MassDOT Transit, it's by the RTA, just so you can ease of finding it. So as you can see, we're making some investments to realign and reconstruct a runway at Fitchburg, and rehabilitate one in Gardner, and some work at Southbridge Municipal Airport. And then obviously there's quite a few projects that are listed here for the highway division. We have some bridge rehabilitation projects. We have a reconstruction in Leominster on Route 13, some interstate maintenance work in Sturbridge, another reconstruction project, and a big superstructure replacement, a pedestrian bridge in Westboro, and the Twin Cities Rail Trail construction, phase 1 in Fitchburg, Leominster. And then I've listed the investment amounts for Montachusett Regional Transit Authority and Worcester Regional Transit Authority. Most of the RTA investments focus on replacement of buses and support vehicles and other vehicles, as well as preventive maintenance for their capital facilities. By and large, that's what they have in their capital plans. And this only reflects the state match dollars. It does not include the federal dollars that go directly to the RTAs themselves. So it's only a portion of what they have to spend on their capital plan. Likewise, for the MBTA, we've included a slide for the MBTA and some of the top projects that they have programmed in their capital plan. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. It's only 1.2 billion of the 2 billion that's shown up for spending for the MBTA in this capital plan. And this list is actually the total authorized budget for the projects listed here, $6.5 billion. So as you can see, it's just a small portion of what they have programmed to spend over the next several years. So again, they're continuing with one of the big investments that they have is the Green Line Extension project, as we all know, and that's actually coming to a close. So that's the good news. And then the South Coast Rail expansion also is programmed for significant investments this year, along with automatic train control. They have a lot of signal work that they're doing on the red and orange line to accommodate the new vehicles. They're procuring some new bi-level commuter rail coaches that will also support South Coast Rail service that will be needed. And they're doing a lot of infrastructure improvements on the red and orange line. As you can see, there's fare transformation underway, as we talked about. And they're also replacing the hybrid electric feet for the Silver Line. So this is just, again, a snapshot of the types of investments that the MBTA has planned, and their full list of investments is in that Appendix A that I was talking about. So we do publish the CIP as what we call a virtual story map. So it provides the public and users an opportunity to really interact with the CIP content and also comment on specific projects. So embedded within the CIP story map is an online comment tool. And I have a snapshot. I'll talk you how to navigate through that comment tool. But we also put on our website a PDF version of the full story map, including the appendices. So if you don't want to go through the virtual story map format, you can just download a PDF version of the whole story map. It might not have all of the graphics, but it has the content. As I mentioned, we're here tonight in one of our virtual public meetings. We've organized 6 virtual public meetings in different regions across the Commonwealth. This is the 3rd one that we've held. We have 3 more next week. And they're being held with the participation of our MPO partners and our TPO partners. So we thank them for participating. We went through, as you heard tonight, an overview of what's in the capital plan. We encourage everybody to take a look at what we have included in the capital plan and submit comments to us. We accept comments on any specific region tonight or even on the CIP in general. And we do want to reiterate there's a number of ways to really get a project that to be advanced in the CIP. And I think we heard from Brad tonight and Sujatha, you know, it's an important role that the MPOs and TPOs play in prioritizing the projects that get into the STIP, which then, or get into their TIPs, which then get into the STIP, which get into the CIP. But the public can play a role that you should engage with your municipal local officials in the planning process for a number of those projects and getting those projects prioritized through that process, as well as through the MBTA and MassDOT local planning and prioritization projects. Whenever we're doing a study or a planning effort, you know, we want to hear from the public. It does make a difference, and it does end up resulting in a project that gets prioritized for funding in the CIP. So this is just our virtual public meeting schedule that we have. We're here tonight in Central Mass. We have next week, next Tuesday night is Boston. Then we follow by Southeastern Mass, and then finally the Cape and the Islands. Feel free to attend any of them. The information is on our website and the links to Zoom for those remaining public meetings. As I mentioned, we have an online comment tool that's embedded within the story map, and there should be a link on our website. We accept email comments via email, and it could be at you could send them at masscip@state.ma.us. We also accept letters, comment letters, and we will get those comment letters sent to us, and we'll categorize the comments in those letters. We encourage everyone, the public, to engage in the municipal leaders about your priorities for transportation projects. We really do want to hear from folks, especially as we embark on a revamped 5-year capital planning process, hopefully for 23 through 27. So this is just a screenshot of what the online comment tool looks like. We're pretty proud of the tool. We've done a lot of work to enhance the search capabilities and make it more user-friendly. You can filter, you can click on the map, filter by a division. There are filter buttons on the left here. And then you can leave a comment on the right, but you can search by like highway division or the MBTA. You can search by a particular municipality. You can search by an MPO region or CIP program. You could search by cost if you wanted to see everything at a certain cost. You can also put a project name in and it should come up, and you can enter an address to view nearby projects. So it's I think it's a pretty good tool. We've gotten some compliments on it before, but you know, we're always open to improving the tool. So please let us know what you think. You can also just submit a general non-specific, non-project specific comment if you so desire. And this is the long address for where the comment tool is available. But as I said, it's embedded in the story map, online story map. It's also in the PDF version of the CIP document. So we wanted to let the folks know we really do use public comment, and it really does influence what we do and what we prioritize for spending. It's really critical that we hear from you as to what you think. Folks, if you comment on an existing project, those comments are shared with the project managers that are working on that project, and they're taken into account as the project is developed or implemented. Comments that might support a future project that's not currently programmed in the CIP are shared with internal stakeholders, because we need to note the level of public interest in a particular project, so that rises to, you know, so we make sure we understand what people are really interested in seeing programmed in the capital plan. If there's comments that are received in support of specific programs are used to help drive the investments and set our 5-year priorities as to what the public would like to see us investing in the overall general comments on the development process. We take that seriously. It sort of helps us shape how we're approaching our capital planning process, how we're setting our priorities, and how we're evaluating and selecting our projects and communicating the progress of what we're trying to achieve. So we do take it seriously. It has made a difference. Projects do get prioritized for funding as a result of public comment. So I wanted to thank you for listening to our little spiel tonight. You can go to mass.gov/massdot/CIP to find the draft 2022 capital investment plan. Again, you can send an email at masscip@state.ma.us to submit a comment, and you can send a letter to MassDOT Legislative and Public Affairs, 10 Park Plaza, room 4160, Boston, Mass. 02116, or also use the comment tool that's online. And we do appreciate you listening to us tonight, and we're happy to take any comments you may have.
Thank you, Michelle. Before we move to the public comment section, I would just like to ask if any elected officials that are here tonight would like to speak, say a few words. Please use the raise hand function. I see we have Representative McKenna here. I can unmute you now if you'd like. Okay, no problem. So we'll just move on right away to the public comment section of tonight's meeting. As a reminder, you can use the raise hand function to indicate to us that you would like to speak, or you can send me a message via private chat, and I will read it aloud for the record. Would anyone like to submit a comment tonight? All right, well, seeing no comments, I'm going to thank everyone for joining us tonight. As a reminder, we are accepting comments until June 14th. And you have several different ways to submit a comment. You can go to mass.gov/CIP to find the draft FY22 capital investment plan. You can comment using our online comment tool. You can email us at masscip@state.ma.us, or you can send us a letter to MassDOT Legislative and Public Affairs, 10 Park Plaza, room 4160, Boston, MA 02116. With that, I'd like to close out this meeting. Once again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight.
Thank you.